So I have the cinch strap here, which we will make the transition to. And then I'm going to start in a standing position with a 4-way trunk stability exercise. So here, you can place the resistance either up parallel to the shoulder if you want to, or you can have it below depending on how you want the resistance to work. So here in this position, you can either place the arms up at this parallel to the ground position with the elbows bent at 90 degrees, or you could place the hands behind the head. And with the opposite knee forward of the resisted arm, you kind of have that spiral sling across to the opposite hip in the anterior side. And then you just hold for time. So you can do this facing away. You can also turn around and do this facing towards the resistance as well. So here now I have it on the posterior chain. I've got the opposite leg forward, so you're really getting into that positioning and activation that you want to get specifically for that throwing motion. Now you could also do this in a standing position. So here I'm in kind of that high split position. You can get into a low split position. So up to you where you want to train it, but again, you're just holding it for time. Then from there, while I'm facing towards the resistance, you can go into the squat here, where it wants to rotate me the entire time. And I've got to stabilize against that rotation through hip flexion and extension, keeping that trunk neutral. And then you can again kind of play with the positions of the feet, and that'll make a difference for the hip on the amount of rotation that you're placing onto the hip. So here you can go through these. You could do them facing towards the resistance. You could do these more on the anterior chain facing away from the resistance. So you get in this position. When you're facing away from the resistance, the parallel stance is really difficult, but you can get good mechanics going through with a high split stance or a low split stance. So you can do that on both sides. We also have a deceleration lunge that you could do with it. I'm just gonna flip it onto this side so you can see it well. So here I'm gonna step forward into it, decelerate, and come back up into position. So this one requires a lot of stability strength in the trunk, especially as that one foot comes off the ground and you have to get back to that standing position. I'm going to drop this now above the knee. So here in this position, you'll notice I kind of, instead of standing perfectly lateral to the resistance, I'll turn towards it a little bit. This way, as I go through a squat, the strap here is not going to hit my inside knee. So here, going through this squat, you've really got to push out with both legs. So you get that abduction on both sides, and you can create such a high level of resistance. You get a really nice effect on that frontal plane ability to produce force and drive it into that throwing or pitching motion. From here, we can go into lateral steps as well. I like to take either 1 or 2 steps in and out on this exercise. Following here, we have I'm going to flip this to the inside leg so I can face you, and I can do the adductor work on it as well. So you can do that squat in the adductor position as well. Now you just have a different challenge to trying to stabilize and keep your hips moving right in between your feet, in between your center of mass. So here we can switch this into a high split. Got that adductor fired up. If you want to get more specific with this, you can start just playing with the position. So here I could be coming up out of it and step forward. Okay, so you start getting into a little bit of more dynamic stability, getting that hip to cross into hip extension instead of flexion here on the front side. And then you can take that into a full lunge forward where it's on the back leg. You can go into a split squat, keeping that resistance on the back leg. This one is really tough. But again, activating those adductors, the deep pelvic floor, really great exercise to do that while the hip is going into extension. So finishing that push off with the foot as you pitching and you're pushing towards the mound. Just gonna go back to the outside leg for a sec. We can put that leg also behind us in that split squat. And again, you've got a really nice activation in the oblique on the same side to really hold that leg in position as you go into extension, which if I were throwing in that direction would be helpful in this situation to be able to produce more force in that direction. From here, we can go into hip bridges as well with the cinch strap. So if I place it on the inside leg, this is where it's really most effective. I'm in this position here. As I drive up, it wants to pull the leg out. I have to maintain that knee in. And you can really feel that adductor work really winding into the pelvic floor as well. Again, you can go into single leg variation here. This is definitely a tough exercise, but you can really feel this in the glute and the adductor, especially as you get to the top and you go into extension. While I'm here on the ground, you can go into hip circles. So here with that resisted leg, slow and controlled, I can go into circumduction here with the hip. You can make those as big as you want to, going backward now. So forward, backward hip circles. We have bird dogs in this position. So here, getting that extension out, coming underneath, extending out. Really difficult, really gets the core active while you have that adductor resisted. Okay, we can go into, as well, go into hip flexion lying on our back. So this one here really fires up the core. You get that connection between the adductor and the core stability, really increases the function of both, and across that kind of spiral line from that adductor up to this pec. So you can always add another stability component here where you'd have a weight that you're holding stable in this position. That'll help anchor you down a little bit more, and you can really increase the resistance on the leg. Really difficult exercise.